What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another My Week With video. So this week I've been driving the 2024 Toyota Tacoma SR5, and this SR5 in particular is the four-wheel drive version with the long bed and the crew cab configuration, and this one also has the SR5 upgrade package, which gives you all kinds of stuff. It's a laundry list of stuff: wireless charging pad, heated seats, you have a heated steering wheel, which is really great to be able to even get on a low trim like this, and this is just one up from the base trim. But because of that big upgrade package on this one is about $10,000 more expensive than a regular SR5, coming in right around $46,205. And I'll talk more about the price here in a few minutes. But first, the other things here that I've noticed during my week with the Tacoma. Obviously, I was very impressed with the truck. I already did a full in-depth review on this truck whenever it first debuted. I drove basically every configuration almost, and you know, it's been a very impressive experience. There's so many cool things they're offering between the hybrid stuff, the manual stuff, you know, so many different options. And I mean, even as far as like an SR5 here, there are 17 different option packages. It's actually really confusing. You know, just you got to make sure you get exactly what you want whenever you're ordering one of these things, but it does give you a lot of customization. And I even did some off-roading in that initial video and stuff, so I have a pretty good idea of what the Tacoma's like already. But just living with it, doing my usual errands in it and things like that, doing a little more highway driving since I didn't do too much of that previously. My takeaways here on the Tacoma are that I still love this powertrain combination, especially compared to the prior generation. I mean, this is miles better. It is an enormous improvement. I gotta say, I wasn't a huge fan of the previous generation's powertrain. I mean, yes, it was proven, it was reliable, and you know, it had its own cult following, but it was just, you know, not a responsive transmission. The engine just didn't make a lot of power down low, and this is the polar opposite. You know, we have this very responsive 8-speed automatic that's, you know, always giving me a downshift whenever I need it and want it. This, you know, turbocharged 2.4 liter motor is so punchy down low with 317 pound-feet of torque. I mean, this thing, it's really punchy, especially if you're coming out of an old Tacoma. You'll probably be surprised, you know, by just how much it wants to wag the tail, especially like right now we're on some wet, you know, cold roads here, and on this kind of stuff, I mean, it wants to wag the tail a little bit. It wants to, you know, spin those tires. That's something, you know, any truck buyer, you know, that drives a rear-wheel drive truck will know. But, you know, it's just one thing that's worth noting is, I mean, it's, you know, with this having so much power down low, you're not going to be able to get on the gases early in these kinds of conditions like you would in a regular Tacoma, where you're not making nearly as much power in those low RPMs. But I mean, this powertrain is just so good. Also, this one is one of the lowest configurations to be able to get the coil spring rear suspension that this one has. And as far as the coil springs go, you know, what I can say is that it definitely helps with the handling. This has nice tight steering, and you know, going around corners, as I demonstrated in my original review on those canyon roads in California, I mean, this is very good from a handling standpoint. And I'd say as far as, you know, mid-sized trucks goes, it's one of the better handling ones with body-on-frame configurations. You know, if you want to have the best handling, I still think just get yourself a Honda Ridgeline. You know, it's unibody, and you know, there's some compromises there if you want to do some more aggressive off-roading and stuff. But, you know, for what most truck buyers use their truck for, I still think the Ridgeline, you know, is going to be the way to go if you want the smoothest ride and you want, you know, the best handling. And speaking of the ride, even though the coil springs do improve the handling, the ride in this is still pretty similar, in my opinion, to my recent experiences, you know, with like the new Chevy Colorado. I have not driven the new Ford Ranger yet, but, you know, I'd say that it certainly is probably a little bit of a nicer ride than what you're going to get in the Nissan Frontier for sure. But compared to that Colorado, it's pretty similar in my opinion, and you know, it still, you know, likes to hop around on uneven pavement, and you know, you definitely feel every bump in the road. Still, that's a truck experience though with these body on frame trucks, and so that's just something to be expected. If you do want to have the smoothest ride in a Tacoma, I'd recommend going up to that Limited, which has the variable dampers there, the adaptive dampers, and that'll certainly, you know, help you out with the ride a little bit. And in my brief sampling of that one, you know, it certainly felt a little bit nicer there. But anyway, so I really like that. The other thing about the powertrain, though, to mention is my fuel economy here. So as far as fuel economy goes, I drove this vehicle almost 70 miles, so not a ton of driving here. I had another press vehicle I had to drive this week as well. But in that driving, I'd say that I did close to 50% highway, probably a little bit less. And Toyota has estimated these as 21 mpg in the city and 26 mpg on the highway. There still is not an official EPA rating for these. I just checked the other day, and it's still not listed on there. So I can't tell you what the EPA rates it at still as of the time of me filming this here. But But what I can say is that during my driving here, again, a 50-50 split, I've been getting 17.7 mpg. Now, I can also add that I am driving this in the wintertime, and you typically get lower fuel economy in the winter and, longer warm-up times and things like that. So, but even, okay, we rounded up to 18. I typically get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating in the kind of usual driving that I do. So I was expecting, maybe 19 or so. So I'm not that far off at 18, but for anyone that was hoping that this 4-cylinder turbo motor was going to be more efficient, with it, making such good boost down low there, your mileage is of course going to vary. It's going to depend on how long you're driving for and stuff. A lot of my driving was short drives, didn't have a long warm-up period, so there was, it's just going to not be as efficient, until that catalytic converter gets warmed up and all that. And also, whenever I was able to do some more highway driving here in the Tacoma, I was really impressed with it. One of the great things is they come standard here with the adaptive cruise control system, with the lane tracing assist, which is their version of lane keep. Obviously it's still a hands-on system, but it did a really good job of staying in the road lines. There was a few times in the dark where it was a little more assertive, where it was really getting a little close to the line and then coming back over, but overall it was pretty reliable. It wasn't flawless with its execution in my opinion, but it was a very good system. It does assertive steering around corners if you live in an area that doesn't have arrow straight highways. It was doing a really good job here in southwestern Pennsylvania of negotiating those gentle corners on the highway, and overall it's a very confidence-inspiring system, and it's just great that again you get it as standard, since most of the other competitors are going to charge you extra for that. But I gotta say, I do really enjoy driving this truck. I was never, loving driving the previous generation Tacoma, to be totally honest. And this one, I actually enjoyed hopping in it and driving it. It's actually a really enjoyable thing to drive. Now, one other thing I also really appreciated was this JBL stereo system. This one has that. That's also one of the things you get in that big upgrade package. And, it's also really cool. You can get the top stereo option in the second to the lowest trim here. And Toyota's really good about, again, giving you so many different options, especially here with the Tacoma. And so, there's a couple interesting things about this though. First off, it sounds amazing, and I have to say, totally honest, I've never been super impressed with any of the JBL stereos. They were always okay, mid-pack, never really a standout. It was fine, that was about it. This one is really exceptional, and I'd say the only stereo that I've experienced in a mid-sized truck that sounds better is the Bose system that you get in the GMC Canyon, and even in that, it's in the upper trims. But outside of that, I'd say this is really fantastic. The bass is incredibly strong in this thing, and it was really fun to, especially bass heavy music sounds so good here, and this was really enjoyable. But the confusing thing was, this has that cool removable speaker. That's one of the fun little party tricks here for the new Tacoma. And this one, I'm not sure if it was working, because me and my buddy were trying to listen, and it didn't sound like there was anything even coming out of it sound wise. And whenever you pop it out, we tried powering it up, and it didn't seem like it was powering up. We couldn't get it to work. So I'm not sure. This is a very early pre-production truck still. That's why we have shiny panels here on the doors and the A-pillars and stuff. This is like a very early pre-production one, not up to production spec. So I'm not sure if that is a dummy unit or if there's just something that's not quite right with that. And so I'm not even sure if that middle speaker was even functioning whenever I've been driving here, but it's still an incredible sounding stereo even without that, which is I'd be curious with that actually working how much better it would sound. But that was just one little odd thing here. I'm hoping to get an actual production spec Tacoma later on this year at some point to hopefully test that out a little more, maybe test out one of the other trims as well. And so yes, but other things here, the last thing I really have to mention is the pricing of this. And like I mentioned, $46 grand for a truck that admittedly, does at least have a heated steering wheel, heated seats. The cloth is actually a pretty nice cloth, so I don't really feel like that's too much of a, penalty box thing here. You don't have to go up to the synthetic leather that they offer or anything, but, it's just a lot. And so I think that upgrade package, it gives you a lot, and you can get heated seats as an a la carte thing. I think it's, only a few $100s. So that one isn't reserved for anything else, but as far as the other things, they're all part of this big option package. So if you want the heated steering wheel, that's part of this big option package. There's no way to get a standalone heated steering wheel, unfortunately, or anything. So, if you only want heated seats and you're okay with a base, Tacoma here, which is totally fine with, wireless CarPlay, still has the digital gauges here and all that, you just got to make sure you commit to either going for, basically no options and keeping these at a nice low price point, or if you're going to, package up these options on here, then that's where the the value gets to be a little tougher. Now, I will say that this is still very close in pricing to what a comparable, even Frontier or, the Ranger or the Colorado is going to cost you. So they're all pretty close, and they do that deliberately, to make it very competitive. But, so there's really no big price advantages to really be had here, in my opinion. It's just going to come down to your personal preference and what exact features you want and need, because they all package things slightly differently. But I think the holdup is just within the Toyota Tacoma lineup itself. This at 46 grand, you can get a comparable, even with all the same stuff, same configuration and all that, a Sport, which to me looks a lot nicer with the nicer wheels and all that, nicer trim, and that's only 3 grand more. And you get like the fun blue dash trim and all that. It's just, a little bit of a higher end feeling truck for only 3 grand more. When you're spending 46, 3 grand isn't, much more of a leap. And then for that matter, you can go up to a full blown Limited with, the huge screen. You have, leather that's heated and cooled, and, so much nicer trim, variable suspension, all that stuff. And those are only 6 grand more than this. So to me, it's everything or nothing with a Tacoma as far as what makes sense pricing wise. If you want to have a cheap Tacoma, then stay away from the options outside of, again, heated seats and other tiny things like that. But if you're gonna go, and if you want the good stereo, if you want all these other features, just go for one of the higher trims in my mind, instead of loading up an SR5 or something, unless you like the more bare bones kind of look. But I feel like that's going to be the not very many people. So if it were my money, either go complete stripper, SR5, or even an SR if you want, or go up to one of those top trims, get yourself a Sport, or a TRD off-road, or Limited, and have in my opinion, a much nicer truck for not much more money, just a lot more features. But I think honestly the biggest value proposition is these base ones. Live without a heated steering wheel, get yourself the heated seats, and you're looking at a truck that's $37,000. I think that's a really solid value for the turbocharged Punch, which you don't get in the Frontier, for example. I mean, it doesn't have the most power. The Colorado still has more horsepower than this, for example. But I just think that you have the Tacoma reliability, the Tacoma resale values, just the legendary nature of the Tacoma here. I think that it's got a very strong appeal, and overall I really have enjoyed my week with the Tacoma. And I'm not a truck guy, and the fact that I was still enjoying driving this thing around says something if you're someone who's familiar with the channel here. So really like the Tacoma here, and I'm excited to maybe try out the manual version maybe later on this year. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know if you have any other questions about the Tacoma that I didn't cover here. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions in the comments there. Please also leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. Stay tuned for more Tacoma coverage, I'm sure, down the road here. Anyway, thank you all once again very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.